It's day 456. It's also August 4th, 2020. And we are in Harvey, North Dakota.
You ever wake up in the morning and ask yourself, what am I doing? And more importantly, why? Yeah, me too. Hi, my name's Craig, and this is my story. A story about life out there. For visuals while listening, search Life Out There on your favorite social media platform or use the links in the podcast description.
Trekking across Highway 2, and knowing that eventually I'd have to head south towards I-94 to hit Fargo, randomly, I chose County Road 52 and was quickly detoured, road closed for construction. We were detoured through an area that illustrated even more vividly what small-town America in North Dakota looks like. And when you see a town called Anamoose, well, you kind of sort of have to check that out, right? The 227 folks that call Anamoose home either ranch, farm, go to school, or enjoy retirement in the town they grew up in. But it turns out, it wasn't always so quiet here. The town was founded in 1898, along with the main line of the Sioux Line Railroad. But here, it wasn't American settlers. Instead, Romanian settlers from Saskatchewan, Canada. And the name Anamoose is derived from the Chippewa word umamush, which means female dog. The story goes that the Chippewa Indians working on the railroad noticed a dog that roamed the area and began referring to the place as Anamoose in their native language. And that same year, a massive prairie fire would nearly take the town out before it had even gotten started. The fire burned for several hundred miles, but thankfully, a resourceful rancher living a mile west of town built a fire break that ultimately would save the town. And the town grew rapidly in the early 20th century, with many new businesses being established in pretty short order. The town had established a general mercantile, a hardware store, a post office, a livery stable, the train depot, 2 grain elevators, a hotel, a lumberyard, a harness shop, and even an implement store. And by 1915, Anamoose had a population of 669. Going gangbusters, it seems. But then, the story of Anamoose takes a turn and begins the journey to decline. Like so many of America's small towns, what history calls progress means pretty much the opposite in towns like Anamoose. They had a nice little park with an RV spot, and we likely would have spent the night there. But the lack of a grocery store sent us 17 miles further down the road to where we would actually spend the night. In Harvey, North Dakota. Population? 1,783. Now, Harvey is situated at the headwaters of the Cheyenne River, and according to the town's official site, quote, Harvey's unique decoding connection is its proximity to the Lone Tree Wildlife Management Area, linked to the North Country National Scenic Trail. This area represents a unique wildlife management and recreation opportunity for residents and visitors alike, close quote. Founded in 1893, as a division point by the Sioux Line Railway, the town's believed to be named after a railway line executive. And Harvey, like Anamoose, was off to a strong start. But Harvey kept going. And by the late 1960s, the town had grown to over 2,500 residents, flourishing around the railway infrastructure and the transportation industry that grew with it. Farming and ranching remain a big part of what folks in Harvey do as well. And the town remains a hub for the area's activity. It's built pretty solid shopping and medical support systems, which is a good thing for the folks in town. Anything bigger means a 70 or 80-mile trek to Minot in one direction, or over 100 miles in the other direction to get to Bismarck, North Dakota, the state's capital, and home to over 70,000 North Dakotans. And then there was that one more click. And man, Harvey, if it taught me nothing else, I know for sure now that being a small town in north-central North Dakota doesn't always mean quiet, and it certainly never meant boring. For example, during the Cold War, Harvey was home to an Air Force radar station as part of the nation's early warning defense system. It was built to detect incoming Soviet bombers and had military personnel stationed here for years. And what about the Harvey heist of 1943? During the height of World War II, the last thing a small prairie town anywhere in America expected was a Wild West-style bank robbery, complete with a shootout. But on a cold November morning, Harvey would witness one. And these bank robbers, well-armed professionals, not your local garden variety amateurs, they were in and out quick, with around $15,000. In today's money, that's $200,000. But the local law enforcement, along with state troopers, they were on it quick too. And when a local farmer reported witnessing the robbers ditching their stolen car and sneaking off down a dusty country road to the south in a different car, minutes later, just outside a place called Carrington, a shootout. A shootout that would wound one law enforcement officer and kill one of the robbers. The remaining three, after attempting to escape on foot, they were all rounded up and sent to a federal penitentiary. And it was later learned that the four robbers had close ties to larger crime syndicates and could be tied to other heists pulled off across the Midwest. But it would be here in Harvey where their crime spree would be brought to an end. The folks in Harvey never forgot the day their little town was turned into a battleground. And they also talk about the fact that some of the money stolen was never accounted for, and how there could still be a hidden stash, to this day, somewhere out there on the plains of North Dakota. And it wasn't just that bank robbery in Harvey that had links to larger, perhaps nationwide crime syndicates. Prohibition brought a whole different cast of not-so-squeaky clean characters to the area. Harvey would become a hotspot for bootleggers moving liquor from Canada and remote stills through North Dakota on its way to places like Chicago and Minneapolis. There were even whispers that Al Capone's network had contracts in the area. And Harvey even has its very own ghost. It's the story about a young woman named Annie, and how she worked as a maid in the Harvey Motel in the late 1920s, perhaps into the 30s. Record-keeping for the time wasn't great, and all hotel records from the time have long since been lost. So some of the details around her untimely death in room 13 are pretty sketchy. Was it suicide? An accident? Or something a bit more sinister? No one really knows. But it is well known that beginning in the 1940s, guests and employees of the hotel would begin reporting to have seen a ghostly figure, sometimes hearing footsteps or lights randomly flickering. You know, all the standard ghost stuff. And these reports would continue into the 80s when the Harvey Hotel ceased operation. So, is Anna a lost spirit, waiting for someone, or waiting for her murder to be solved? Or is Anna simply the conjurings of the imagination of others? Whichever, the story of Anna has managed to stick around Harvey for over 80 years. And imagination, if that's what it is, isn't confined to ghost stories around Harvey. The Midwestern plains that surround the town have been a hotspot for UFO sightings and strange lights in the night. earliest reportings date back 50 years. Now, many'll tell you that the observations are more likely associated with the nearby Minot Air Force Base, a military base with a long history of classified top-secret military projects. And what about all those stories about strange disappearances around here? Throughout the late 1800s and into the early 1900s, there were several instances in which settlers on the plains simply disappeared and were never seen again. Some blamed on severe blizzards. Some, maybe Native American conflicts. But others, simply unexplained. Like one tale in particular. It tells of a homesteader who walked into the prairie during a storm and was never seen again. His cabin left intact. Food still on the table. And then, when I read, quote, "The Town of Twins, Harvey, North Dakota's Double Mystery," close quote. Well, I had to keep reading. And it seems that in the quiet prairie town of Harvey, something unusual is happening. While it looks like any other small Midwestern town, Harvey holds a curious secret. It has an unusually high number of twin births. Nationally, about 33 out of every 1,000 births result in twins. But in Harvey, some years see as many as 1 in every 20. Families here often have multiple generations of twins, as if something in the town's DNA is programmed for doubling up. Now, scientists point to genetics as a likely cause, but some theories suggest diet or environmental factors, especially since North Dakota is a major dairy-producing state, and some studies indicate that there's a link between high dairy intake and twin births. There's no definitive answer, but for the people of Harvey, twins are just a part of life. So if you ever visit, don't be surprised if you find yourself doing a double take, because in Harvey, you might just actually be seeing double. Now, it's pretty cool that as we pulled off into a city park, complete with RV hookups, I had no idea what we had just actually pulled into. A town with an abnormally high number of twins. A ghost haunting an old hotel. An infamous bank heist that ended in a deadly shootout. And home to a secret military base during the Cold War. And I thought, well, if they ever reopen that Harvey Hotel, stay out of room 13. For a quiet place on the North Dakota prairie, Harvey has more than its fair share of mysteries. And to top it off, Harvey would also be where we would experience our first head-on, full-out Midwestern thunderstorm, the likes of which I hadn't seen since leaving Minnesota as a teenager in 1982. The smell of rain. I think we all have that visceral reaction to the scent when it hits us. Those first rains after a long hot summer. Somehow, it's just a little more impactful when it's not the end, but the middle of that long hot summer. The raindrops hit with precision and purpose when driving down through a 70-degree night. Now, maybe it's the Pacific Northwesterner in me, or maybe it's all of us. But getting wet is not the concern as you step out of the RV and into it all. The skies light up, and for an instant, it's daylight. And then, dark again. The pace of everything quickens. It's difficult to explain the sensation that things are moving so quickly around you, while at the same time, everything stands still. The flashes of light and the cracks and booms bring everything around you to life, and then suddenly, it all disappears into blackness again. Silence. You think to yourself, you should probably go inside, but you don't want to. But eventually, You do. And back inside Vacilando, the raindrops, those raindrops with precision and purpose, are even more evident. They seem to pound the aluminum-skinned roof as if to state their presence and make it known that nothing else matters but them. And at this particular moment in time, in this place, they're right. I didn't even turn the TV on or check the phone for updates here in Harvey. Instead, just a night of Harvey. Then drifting off to sleep, listening to the rain pound our roof, and thinking about the 100 miles between us and Fargo, North Dakota. And I wonder what we'll learn there.
Turns out, this thing called life comes with a lot of rules. Maybe it's time to break a few. Because you can. No, seriously. You can.
Free audio post-production by alphonic.com.